Here we are with another volume of the Cinema Chronicles right here on Nashville Movie Dispatch. I'm your host, Brandon Vick. I'm a member of the Music City Film Critics Association, a board member, I think, and just a regular old member of the Southeastern Film Critics Association. And obviously you can find all of our work on nashvillemoviedispatch.substack.com. So we're coming a little later than usual. We usually try to do it the last Monday of the month, but obviously that was a holiday and there was some traveling going on. And so we're here to kick off your Friday instead. And I would like to let you folks in on my private life. For the past 2 weeks almost, or 2 weeks now, my son had his tonsils removed, and it really affected his sleep and energy, behavior. There's a lot that's linked to tonsils that honestly I had no idea. Now, I should have, because apparently his tonsils were huge, and so But the recovery, it takes 2 weeks. They can only eat basically soft stuff. They can't use a straw. They have to drink all the time. Keeping hydrated. They can't jump. They can't play. They can't run. And let me tell you, telling a 3-year-old you can't do much. And let me tell the TV and stuff only works for so long. And so I was amazed of just how challenging the first few days were. He also has to take medicine every 4 hours all day, every day for, it was at least 3 or 4 days. He didn't want to do that. He didn't want to drink. And I'm sure it sucked. But I will tell you, one day I'm going to tell my son that he had it easy, because I got my tonsils taken out when I was 30. And I was the biggest baby, because you wake up at 3 a.m, and it's not just your throat. It was like your tongue and your mouth, and it was everything. So there's nothing you could do to not feel the pain. But I did have good pain meds. I do remember that, but I do remember my wife having to, my fiance back then, maybe my girlfriend, I don't know, but she had to get up and literally go get the medicine, because I didn't want to move. I didn't want to talk. There are 2 things I remember in my recovery. I watched all of the seasons of Game of Thrones, and just in time when it was like 2 weeks before the final season was going to air. And I got into the very first season of that F1 show on Netflix, and I've been watching it ever since. So I remember that, and I remember I got accepted into the Music City Film Critics Association during that time, and I remember when I finally was able to have a peanut butter sandwich, and it was heaven on earth. So my son's doing great. He's a free man now, and his father, me, I still have PTSD from it, but I just want him to know that he had it easier than his old man, and I'm gonna try and tell him every year. So, besides that, I hope everyone had a happy Memorial Day. Summer's here. The summer movie blockbuster season is here, even though I'm not sure if it quite feels like it. But let's get into it. Let's start. I got 4 good ones. Even while I was at home, stuck at home, I was able to get a few. So let's start with Adam Scott returning to the horror genre after that blockbuster scary Christmas movie Krampus. Next. Hokum. So this is per Rotten Tomatoes. When novelist Bauman, played by Adam Scott, retreats to a remote inn to scatter his parents' ashes, he's consumed by tales of a witch haunting the honeymoon suite. Disturbing visions and a shocking disappearance forces him to confront dark corners of the past. So this is from the director of Oddity, Damian McCarthy. And this is, he is bringing us a haunted hotel tale where things are creepy, though at times conventional. Really trying to tap into kind of the Brothers Grimm stuff with this one. First off, this has an amazing atmosphere, a great use of location. This one takes place in Ireland, which all three of McCarthy's films have been set there. There's just this constant feeling of eeriness and distress, and it's also set at Halloween. Nice touch. It's at the fictional Bilberry Woods Hotel, and it's very much a character in the film, and it is creepy as hell. Hokum definitely sets out to scare the hell out of us, and it succeeds for the most part. It does take a while to really get there, though. The jump scares are hit or miss, but become rather predictable as the film goes along. But luckily, McCarthy doesn't go overboard with them. His ability to slowly crank up the terror and dread is well executed, making us, the audience, hold our breaths in more than a few scenes. And the film really gets good once Ohm gets to the honeymoon suite. It gets tense and spine-tingling. I enjoyed Scott's work here. He's good. He's going darker than we are certainly used to as he's battling different forms of demons. Though as far as Hokum's themes, the themes of guilt and regret, childhood trauma, they are very familiar, especially in this genre. There's also some Irish folklore, and it's all right. I mean, it's not totally original, as it centers around like witches and, circles being drawn out in chalk. I wish the film could have dug in more on that stuff. And the kind of real villain of the film is a bit of a bummer too. It's not nearly as exciting as the supernatural horror threats that we get to see and experience. I mean, listen, a human threat is basically a requirement. But as it takes up more and more time, the momentum really sort of starts to slow down for Hokum. However, through it all, it still does deliver when it needs to. As I said earlier, once Ohm breaks into the honeymoon suite, the film really kind of heightens the horror in its loud and quiet moments. And I gotta say, almost any scene involving this dumbwaiter elevator is terrifying. It's kind of like, give you nightmares kind of shit. So I liked Hokum. I really liked, like I said, the atmosphere, the energy of it. Some things, again, conventional, predictable, but I think it delivers when it needs to. So Hokum is getting 3 out of 5 stars Vick Flicks rating. And coming up next, Meryl Streep, Anne Hathaway, and that sassy Stanley Tucci are back together, wearing clothes. I'll talk about it next. Per IMDb, Andy Sachs reunites with Miranda Priestley as they navigate their careers amid the decline of traditional magazine publishing. Yes, almost, I believe, 20 years later, it is The Devil Wears Prada 2. The most surprising and interesting part of this legacy sequel is it does acknowledge and actually does have something to say about the floundering state of journalism and the world of media at large. It feels refreshing and real in this day and age. This is a piece by The Hollywood Reporter called "The Media is Melting Down and The Devil Wears Prada sequel rolls with the punches." It says, with the benefit of hindsight, it seems that 2006's The Devil Wears Prada was released at the pinnacle of traditional media's grip on our attention, a moment when magazines and legacy media seemingly ruled the world and held unbridled influence and power. The Devil Wears Prada 2, meanwhile, serves as something of a eulogy for the industry's sad decline a biting satire that will hit close to home for anyone in media. The internet existed in 2006, of course, but Facebook was still only open to students. Twitter was founded 2 months before the film's release. The Huffington Post was only a year old. Blogs like Gawker had a lot of buzz, but it was real-world magazine editors like Anna Wintour that were so often the subject of its focus and curiosity. The Devil Wears Prada captured the waning heyday of legacy media. The Devil Wears Prada 2 captures the tumultuous and uncertain current moment. So, knowing all this and kind of seeing what the first one sort of had to say, and obviously its take on it, and here we are 20 years later, things have obviously changed. And the sequel, there's some less sassiness in this and less satire, and it sort of leans really into being more sentimental, and that's for better and for worse. It is sort of laughable to tell a story about the demise of journalism and like these widespread cuts, but overly indulging in this ultra wealthy and glamorous world of fashion. It does kind of come across as insincere at times. This one has too many subplots. There is two that instantly come to mind is the great actor / director, Kenneth Branagh. He is totally just wasted in this one. And I don't mean like drunk. I mean like anybody could have kind of come in. I'm kind of surprised he took this kind of role. It just seems, it was almost kind of boring for him. He plays Miranda's husband, and I don't know. There's just nothing. His character adds nothing to the story, and I don't know. I really thought with him being a part of the film that he would be doing something more, and he's not. And there's also Andy they kind of start this new love interest for her, and it's totally unnecessary. You want to talk, Kenneth Branagh is more important than this love interest plot thing with Andy, and anyway, there's no emotion put into that. The stakes also for Devil Wears Prada 2, they feel really low, and they also, it can't help but feel familiar in a lot of ways, and I think that's equally comforting, but also monotonous. These movies, the Devil Prada movies, have and do have fans foaming at the mouth when it comes to costumes and design, which I get, and it's all very gorgeous and exquisite. This is per paper, how The Devil Wears Prada 2 blends realism and fashion fantasy. It says that I knew it had to feel bigger, better, more glamorous, and glossier. Prada production designer Jess Gonsher, who worked on both the original film and its sequel, told Paper, "Fortunately, we had the resources to make that happen. These resources led to collaborations for exclusive Venetian fabrics from famed house Rubelli, hand-painted tablecloths for a Milan gala dinner, license a Wayne Theobald painting from Miranda's townhouse, and, of course, clothing the lead stars, including Cor Forsum, Hathaway Streep, Emily Blunt, and Stanley Tucci, plus franchise newcomer Simone Ashley in a stunning fashion that complemented the set design." He goes on to say, "We understood that the fashion set dressing was very important to this film, and it had to be spot on." Set director Stephanie Bowen tells Paper, "We worked closely with costume designer Molly TK, and it truly was a team effort." They talk about the production designer Gonsher is such an amazing designer and a great collaborator. "I quickly discovered that he loves beautiful things as much as I do, so it was fun to see his excitement over some of our furniture selections and fabrics. We wanted the sets to feel beautiful, but also functional, layered, authentic. Great care went into the details. Each book, each lamp, every piece of art which was thoughtfully curated for each set. The design choices felt instinctive, putting together mood boards for these larger-than-life characters. We were also fortunate to have the support of some coveted and emerging fashion brands that were willing to loan out clothing for filming. It was quite the collection and a feast for the eyes, enjoyed by us all." I think a lot of the Devil Wears Prada fans would certainly agree with that. A feast for the eyes. So for for me, The Devil Wears Prada 2, I think what works the best is having movie stars doing movie star things. There are 4 delightful performances. Streep is great, even if Miranda has been watered down. It really feels like Hathaway was born for this role of Andy, and she's carrying a bit more confidence these days and wears it well. Blunt gets quite a boost in this one and has quite the scandalous scene that makes her coming back worth it. Then there's Tucci, our MVP. He's so endearing, and I think we all admire his loyalty to Miranda, and we want to see him get his flowers too. There is a very sweet scene between him and Andy at the end that will have fans loving him that much more, if that's even possible. The Devil Wears Prada 2 has, I think, made over, $600-700 million, so clearly people went to see it. People have enjoyed it. Me, I think it's kind of right there in the middle. There's things to like. I'm not sure if it's to love, but Devil Wears Prada 2 gets a VixFlix rating of 2.5 out of 5 stars. And coming up next, Boots Riley is back, and he's more bonkers than ever. I love boosters. So in his first feature film called Sorry to Bother You, writer-director Boots Riley, he runs wild, and it's a sharp, fucked up satire about race relations, modern-day work slavery, and what society in general is willing to give up for the almighty dollar. It was original, it's relevant, it was extraordinarily off-kilter, and while demanding and not for everyone, it was a ballsy film that wanted to provoke and wasn't scared to tell us that we only have ourselves to blame. So, with I Love Boosters, per Rotten Tomatoes, professional shoplifters embark on a wild adventure as they target a cutthroat fashion mogul. So, I Love Boosters is his sophomore outing and is yet another bold and audacious and inventive effort that's fearless and unapologetic in his maximalist, absurd, and savage satirical dismantling of capitalism. His style, whether it's for you or not, of storytelling is unrivaled. This is a Geeks Vibe Nation review by Ezra Cubero. Says it's rare to see a filmmaker create a piece of art that's so singular, feels almost indescribable. That presents a daunting task for any critic to take on the task of articulating the magic that they've just witnessed. Riley continues his call-to-action approach to storytelling designed to embolden his audience to demand change within our class divide while immersing them in a sensory overload of awesome. With I Love Boosters, Riley dares to challenge what films can look like and what impact they can leave on the world. His ferocious, scathing takedown of our capitalist society comes from a place of deep care for the people who are left the most harmed. His film, I Love Boosters, constantly reinvents itself, breaking free from the confines many filmmakers might find themselves in. Now, while distinct and provocative, I do think Riley creates also with a purpose. However, I think he's trying to accomplish a little too much here, resulting in his message that he's wanting to deliver in I Love Boosters to become rather convoluted. I really dug the performances, even though, again, there's too many supporting characters that are not developed enough for me, and it leaves relationships feeling somewhat empty. Keke Palmer stars in this. She's fabulous. Naomi Aki, who's also great. She's fantastic, playing sort of the only friend we understand as far as where she's coming from. But damn, do we need more of Don Cheadle's Dr. Jack. Now, Don Cheadle was unrecognizable in this. He is awesome. He only has like a couple of scenes, but I would watch a film just about Dr. Jack. There are also some side stories that feel incoherent and unfocused, and then just comes a sweeping sci-fi twist that needs further explaining, yet is also something the entire film becomes too dependent on, leaving its third act pretty chaotic and messy. Even so, the artistic skills that are at play are stellar. Colorful, funny, vibrant with a killer score / soundtrack by the Tune Yards and some mad fashion. Again, Riley's vision is inarguably a visceral one. And as mentioned earlier in that Geek Vibes Nation review, he applies his mind-bending vision to embolden his audience to demand change. And in this case, it is art. This is via RogerEbert.com. I'm trying to create visceral things. Boots Riley on I Love Boosters. Now, this is by Robert Daniels. And it's an interview. And in this interview, he asks, in your projects, you sometimes emphasize different kinds of labor. With I'm a Virgo, you have the labor of the body, which is a show that Boots Riley did. Sorry to Bother You is the friction between labor and art. Here, with Keke Palmer's character, it's her intellectual labor. Riley says, there's also the labor of the people working in factories and retail. I think also, Sorry to Bother You, obviously there are both the folks who are producing things and folks who are selling them. So yes, this is another aspect of it. Although I think it's a small aspect of the movie, it's a starting point, it's a motivation. It's not everything the movie's about. He goes on to say that he thinks I Love Boosters is about art in general. In the real world, he says the analogous, messed it up, analogous thing. I'm not even talking about one designer getting their stuff stolen. I'm talking about how the fashion industry, depending on the place, uses the styles of people of color and working class folks in general to create ways of wearing and combining things that can be marketed. So in this film, it's just a simpler way to talk about it. And to me, it's more about what that relationship is to the communities that have nothing and the folks who are making millions off of fashion, taking it from communities that then wish that they could get that stuff because it's been remarketed to them. So I'm talking about something that I don't even think people would call IP. They might call it appropriation. That's how all things happen fashion-wise. So with I Love Boosters, I think Riley goes a tad too hard in his revolution of collective power, and the film becomes overstuffed while being bogged down by unnecessary choices that I believe cheapen his critiques, but it doesn't in no way change the fact that he is a radical, gifted filmmaker who will always be exciting to watch, and that will always have me coming back for more. I Love Boosters gets a VixFlix rating of 3 out of 5 stars. And coming up next to take us home, it's the sensation sweeping the nation next. Obsession. That's right. Obsession. Curry Barker is a YouTuber and part of an internet sketch comedy duo called That's a Bad Idea. He kind of does that alongside Cooper Tomlinson. His first movie is Milk and Cereal, and it was on YouTube, and it's really better than it has any right being. Performances and script aren't the strongest, but it's quite smart and fresh with its film footage gimmick. And being only an hour also works in its favor. And you can actually check out a review of this on SobrosNetwork.com. Stephen McCash did a little write-up on that a couple years ago. Barker basically was the entire crew, did everything for Milk and Cereal. And with Obsession, his second feature, it's sort of the same. He directed it, he wrote it, he edited it. Barker takes a very simple premise and happily twists it into an unforgettable tale of an innocent crush quickly escalating into a devilish game of devotion. Per Rotten Tomatoes, after breaking the mysterious one-wish willow to win his crush's heart, a hopeless romantic finds himself getting exactly what he asked for, but soon discovers that some desires come at a dark, sinister price. So, first of all, the one-wish willow, it's at a great price of $6.99. And Bear, played by, you know, that one guy, Michael Johnston. Bear sure as hell gets his money's worth. This is via IndieWire. It's a filmmaker interview with Curry Barker. Says Curry Barker's current obsession, just making great genre films. This is by Christian Zillow. As he tells it, the whirlwind of success all started with his own simple obsession with obsession itself. The genesis was the idea that we as humans can obsess over things, Barker said. Movies like Misery inspired me. Oh, this is about a woman who's obsessed with an author that she's fantasized in her head what this type of man is, and she has an idea of who he is, and she captures him. That was the general idea. And then when I came up with the wish part of it, it all started to click for me. This is, Christian says, as I detailed in my Toronto International Film Festival review last fall, much of the film's brilliance lies in Barker's decision to portray a heinous series of events from the perspective of the perpetrator rather than the victim. The result is a film that's far more complicated than its premise suggests, forcing audiences to consider the idea that being the person who did something horrible can end up seeming almost as scary as having it done to you. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to point the camera and tell you how you're supposed to feel, as far as if you're supposed to feel bad for Bear or if you're supposed to be angry at Bear, Barker said, but whether you feel bad for him or not, the story is told from the perspective of Bear. Say all that to say Obsession, in its own unhinged, disgusting way, dissects the difference between love and obsession, and it's gleefully horrifying on several levels, relentlessly disturbing while distressingly funny, and what is probably the most thrilling is how unpredictable it truly is. And it's mostly because of Nikki. Now, Indy Navarrete is nothing short of astonishing. Her incredible emotional range that undoubtedly gets very unnerving, as well as her petrifying physicality. You're laughing one second and squirming or flat out screaming the next. Now, talk about Johnston. He's the other half here, and he is great as Bear. You do sympathize with him, as so many of us can probably relate to just being a decent person who just wants their crush to like them back. But there's also realizing that he's a bit of an asshole who's getting what he deserves. And Barker pushes through the obvious shallow parts to explore the darker and more deranged aspects of what appears, rather harmless on the surface. Things like control, the selfishness and fragility of us dudes, and emotional manipulation, to name a few. So, and these all roll into these questions that Barker is wanting to ask. This is per Entertainment Weekly. It says, Obsession director Curry Barker reveals film's original ending and why his dad told him to change it. Barker knows he's not the first to tell a cautionary tale about being careful what you wish for, the basic premise for Obsession. He's noted is loosely inspired by the first segment of The Simpsons' Treehouse of Horror 2, itself a parody of W. Jacobs' short story The Monkey's Paw. What separates his take on the narrative archetype, it says, is the way Obsession explores questions of control and consent. I think what's interesting is that there is media that has tackled this idea and hasn't really delved into the fact that love should be earned and what that actually means when you're wishing for someone else to love you without their consent, he explains. So, at the beginning, once he kind of makes this wish and things kind of change, at the beginning of Bear and Nikki's romance, and again, I have romance, air quotes, if you want to call it that, it comes off as cute and innocent. There's even kind of this like rom-com montage, which is kind of funny. But what's to come is such a wild-ass ride, and it's equally fun and frightening. The sound design is terrific, but there are so many scenes that are anxiety-inducing or creepy or chilling, and the clever camera viewpoints, the heavy shadows and outstanding lighting truly intensify everything. It gets under your skin pretty easily. There are a few scenes that instantly come to mind, but listen, I'm not going to be the dickhead to spoil those for you. So there are some little things that Obsession I think could have dug in more to add some depth and to get kind of at least maybe a better understanding of Nikki. Yet there is, again, as mentioned, there is this understanding before that this is all from Bear's perspective. So, but listen, even so, what Navarrete, I hope I'm saying her last name right, accomplishes in this is superb. Feeling constantly uncomfortable is the film's real specialty, and Nikki is unyielding in delivering just that with sudden, shocking scenes to get your heart racing. She has us in total upheaval physically and mentally, so my advice is to buckle up. I'm also a big fan of the ending. If any movie, or in any movie, the ending can make or break it, and that's especially true for horror. But it's highly rewarding, and come to find out, it actually wasn't even the ending Barker originally had. I'm going to get into this without spoiling anything. This is from the same Entertainment Weekly article. Barker says, we had shot a ton of different versions of the official ending, the one that's in the script, the one that I was excited about. And I was like, okay, we'll do one ending where something, and then we'll do one take, and then we'll move on. The director, talking about Curry, allowed only one take for this version because of the complicated setup. The scene unfolds without any cuts and involves a complex upside-down camera movement. Barker says it was a very technical shot, so we only gave her one take. But Navarreti's performance was so good, he had to reconsider his initial plan. I'm going to skip this little part because it explains what happens at the end. But I will pick it up where Barker says, I just remember my dad and multiple people around me being like, dude, I think it's way more disturbing. And he was like, you're right. And so we switched it. So when you watch this, that ending was a one-take ending, and it's superb. I'm happy Barker listened to those he loves most because I think it's quite perfect. I love how it all comes full circle in the end. Intriguing and insane with completely committed performances, Obsession irrefutably establishes Barker as a filmmaker with a vision and voice unlike anyone else. So honestly, at this stage, who's not pumped about his version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? So I am giving Obsession a VixFlix rating of 4 out of 5. I remember our buddy Sean talking about how the bar isn't really that high, but it's definitely the best horror film of the year. Also one of the best films of the year. I'm so impressed with what Curry Barker was able to do, especially from Milk and Cereal to this. And so anyway, it was, so 4 out of 5 stars, and that's it. That wraps up the volume 40 of the Cinema Chronicles right here on Nashville Movie Dispatch. Again, all of our work can be found on Nashville Movie Dispatch .substack.com. And I'll see you back here next month. And until then, just go see a damn movie.